Hello and welcome to the Urban Cube. Dr. Robert Siy Jr. is a transport economist, sustainable mobility advocate, and one of the founding conveners of the Move as One coalition. With decades of experience in development economics, public policy, and international development, he has dedicated his career to advancing people centered, inclusive, and sustainable transport systems. Dr. C champions reforms that make Philippine cities more walkable, bikeable, and livable. Beyond this policy and advocacy work, he's a trusted mentor to emerging transport advocates and coalition members, helping cultivate the next generation of mobility leaders. Outside of work, Roby is an avid cat lover. Welcome, Roby, and thank you for joining us on our podcast, The Urban Cube.
Thank you very much, Jaya, for inviting me and featuring the Move as One coalition. We're happy to be here with WRI Indian.
Wonderful. So let me start with the first question that I ask all my guests on the podcast. That is, which is your favorite city in the world and why?
Oh gosh, that's a very interesting question. Right now, uh, I really love uh, Xiamen in China. you know, a great combination of uh, being green. It's known as the Green City of China. And then it's also known, um, I'd say, for being very inclusive in terms of walking, cycling, and public transport. And they even have, you know, uh, a very large area where it's totally uh, only for walking. And I find this to be something that is very attractive for me, where, a zone that is totally devoted for people uh, just to walk around without any fear of, any possible road safety risk.
Wonderful. And yes, walkability sort of being the reason why a city is attractive. I'm sure that's a reason that many cities are attractive to people. So then let's just jump right in and talk about the Move as One coalition and your work there. So the Move as One coalition, which is based in Manila, Philippines, brings together over 140 organizations and 77,000 individuals from across the nation. Commuters, transport workers, planners, climate champions, youth leaders, and advocates are working together to make mobility a shared civic issue. The goal is simple: a transport system that is safer, more dignified, and more accessible, where decision making centers the needs of commuters and workers, backed by technical evidence. So, Robbie, tell me, how did an unusually broad coalition like the Move as One come together? What were the conditions, the conversations, or frustrations that brought such a diverse set of stakeholders around one shared vision instead of competing agendas?
Jaya, for many years, we've had different groups of advocates already campaigning for inclusive and sustainable mobility. And we were very often hitting many obstacles and constraints along the way. In a way, things came to a head during the early months of the pandemic. What happened in many parts of the Philippines was that public transport completely broke down, and this became an opportunity to bring together many different segments of society to work out what would be a viable solution. So we brought together academics, urban and transport planners, commuter groups, and people in the public transport industry to sit down and work out a game plan that we could sell to leaders. And this became in a way, a rallying cry, and in a way catalyzed the development of the coalition. So actually put out a plan, and we launched a change.org petition. And this attracted a huge number of people, and this became the base for us to form this coalition of 100 or so organizations and 77,000 individuals. So we've built from there.
That is fantastic. And change.org as the base, that is wonderful. That's a great sort of utilization of a platform like that. Now, the concept of Bayanihan in your culture embodies the ideas of collective action and community solving. So, how does this cultural value shape the coalition's approach?
Well, this is deeply rooted in Philippine culture. Communities working together for common objectives, and sometimes it's addressing, a crisis, but sometimes it's simply also helping someone uh, achieve a goal that's it requires efforts more than one person or one family. So this is something that's a value that's deeply rooted in Philippine society. When we came upon this public transport crisis at the pandemic, I think there was a natural effort to bring together different groups and to have a conversation and to figure out how can we work together. So many people had been working in the past at cross purposes, and now there was a chance to figure out how can we all move forward where everyone uh, can have some wins. And this is where, Move as One works best. We can bring together uh, disparate groups in a community to talk about a common issue and work out a solution. So, this is something that we've tried to do at different scales. And this is something where, at least in the transportation sector, we've gotten some wins.
That is fantastic. In India, we have the concept of Vasudeva Kutumbakam. The word is one family, which is kind of similar. So, could movements in other countries, when you think about it, though they don't share the same cultural context, adopt this spirit of solidarity that comes from your cultural values?
In a way, it's in the DNA of Move as One, the to be inclusive and to bring in uh, all the stakeholders involved in a particular issue. I think what also we can bring to the table is we have uh, we have in our group professionals and academics and also people in the student sector that can bring in certain skills that help us uh, address some of the constraints that have been, long-standing barriers. For example, in the past, we've always wondered how come most of the budget has actually been for car-oriented infrastructure. So we did research. Uh, we looked into budgets over the last 2 decades, and we found that only 1% of the budget for road infrastructure was spent on people-oriented uh, facilities. The rest had been spent on car-oriented infrastructure. And we armed with those types of statistics, those types of analysis, we've been able to push the agenda of more people-centered mobility at a higher level, especially with the people who work on the budget. So, being able to understand the budget and how it works has enabled us to, in a way, apply a different strategy, which we've never done in the past.
Now, that's very interesting. I think the whole focus on people oriented facilities or people oriented commute is, I think, it's a common developmental challenge across the world. And as we know, that development change is inherently slow, and movements often struggle to maintain momentum. So while you came about during the COVID years out of a crisis, yet you have managed to achieve meaningful early wins and sustain it so far. What do you think were the first sort of big or small victories that showed people that this movement was making a difference and that, it is worth sustaining?
There were two things during the pandemic that I think demonstrated a good way forward. One was the development of bicycle lanes.
Yeah.
At the time when, the Philippines hardly had any bicycle lanes in place. But during the pandemic, all of a sudden, you needed people to have independent means of travel that didn't involve using a motor vehicle, or people didn't have access to public transport. It was pretty much shut down. So with this message that we need to have safe pathways for people with bicycles. And actually, this statistic we put out early on, the ratio of households with bicycles outnumbered households with cars by a ratio of like 4-1. So even on a pop up basis, we were able to argue for modest spending on having those protected bike lanes. So during the pandemic, we were able to campaign initially for about 500 kilometers of bicycle lanes
Wow.
across three different metropolitan areas of the Philippines. And today, it's now running at about 1,200 kilometers of bike lanes. So it's a very meaningful accomplishment, but still far from what we need. So we still need to keep pushing. The other, actually, the other, in a way, victory during that period was getting our city buses to
Mm.
actually move into a dedicated median bus lane.
Mm.
We had many major thoroughfares in the Philippines, which were basically, well, very car oriented, but on the curbside, we had uh, thousands of buses that were moving very slowly and basically affected by uh, a lot of friction with private motor vehicles on the curbside.
Right.
So it was quite amazing that during the pandemic, because fewer motor vehicles were out, we pushed this idea: why not move the buses to the median
Mm.
and get people to use the median to access the buses? So uh, the government thankfully agreed, and this was the birth of what we call the EDSA busway. So in a
Mm.
way, it is pretty much still runs today as almost a pop-up bus rapid transit system. But
Interesting.
with very little investment, it has already it already moves roughly about 300 to 400,000 passengers every day. So it's already a medium-sized bus rapid investment. So we're pushing very much the idea that the government needs to replicate this and expand this. And with a little more investment, we could actually expand the capacity of this system, three or four times what it is today. So these are the types of lobbying that we try to do at different levels of government, including today at the local government level. We need to also get mayors to believe in something like a bus rapid transit system.
No, that is wonderful. So, buses, public transport, and cycling, which was the most resilient sort of mode of transport that showed up, especially during the COVID years. Now, from the coalition's perspective, do you think it was important to show this progress early, to establish the coalition's sort of credibility in some ways? It was important to show this progress early?
Yes, definitely. And a big part of that is uh, being able to measure the the impact or the success, and to publicize it. This is also where we try to bring in uh, members of the coalition who have research and analytical skills. And we get them to do some of that, even on a volunteer basis, but to produce, very credible academic material, which we can then use to articulate, the logic, the rationale for expanding this type of infrastructure. So this is uh, one of the benefits also of the coalition. We're able to bring in uh, very passionate people from different sectors,
Mm.
young professionals, young academics who are interested in this field. And being able to capture these statistics, for example, because we also had collaboration with uh, survey and polling agencies. So we were able to identify this statistic that only 6% of Filipino households are car owners.
Mm.
So this is a very powerful statistic to use. We try to use it everywhere to demonstrate that a lot of the fundamental spending and planning that is car oriented is not only uh, economically inefficient, it's basically unjust. And we need to reverse that priority and make our infrastructure spending targeted at persons who are not car owners, who are not car users. So having that change of mindset is so important. But what I found out is you can't just say it once. You need to say it over and over again. And that's, I think, why we need to sustain the Move as One coalition and get more and more young people to echo these messages.
No, absolutely. Saying it again and again, I completely hear you, because at some point you feel like you've said enough and things should catch on. But no, I think repetition is key to sort of sensitization as well. Now, campaigns, they often begin with a certain immediate agenda, which is also what happened with Move as One. But at the end of the day, they need institutions or homes to carry forward. So, what is the long game for Move as One? What does success look like in, say, 10 or 20 years from now?
Okay, on the ground, the prioritization is still for those in cars. However, uh, the rhetoric, what's written in government statements, always says that the priority should be for people who are walking, cycling, and or using public transport. But we don't yet see that as reality. So what we need to see is for the spending, the services, the performance measurement to actually reflect that prioritization. And that is when we will know that, the messages are getting through and people are actually feeling the impact. Uh, how to get there? We need to change mindsets, especially among the young. And this is where the Move as One also has been investing a lot of effort. We have a Young Mobility Leaders Program. And this program is targeted to, in a way, multiplying our efforts by identifying what we would call young mobility leaders and then putting them through uh, like a month long, in a way, orientation program that enables them to take these types of efforts down to their level, wherever they live, whichever communities they're in, to actually try to bring these messages across to people in their own communities.
No, and that is actually that segues very well into the next question that I had for you is that, how is Move is One thinking about sustaining the movement beyond individual leaders, political cycles, or sort of current funding and investment windows that you have? The young mobility leaders is one way, but what are some of the other ways that you're thinking about it?
We have to find ways of also recycling and bringing in more people into our coalition. I should mention that one key aspect of our work is we also try to identify champions within government. And if we find those champions within government, different parts of government, sometimes it's within the budget agency, sometimes within the Department of Finance, sometimes within the Department of Public Works, and or it's also in transportation, we try to uh, cultivate a relationship with them to work on joint projects. And hopefully, this type of effort uh, takes root within their own agencies and organizations. So it's basically uh, pushing for transformative reforms within their respective agencies so that they come to internalize this change in priorities that we want. So I think that's one big part of it. The other part of it is we also try to empower our young volunteers, our young mobility leaders to take on careers in this field. You see, where we really need more professionals are in fields like community planning,
Mm.
transportation, and urban development. These are fields where there is such a big shortage of skills and experience in the Philippines, and we need these types of professionals at every level of government. So, what we find is that the volunteers, the advocates who work with us over a few months to a year, it also gives them the idea that maybe I can have a career in this field. And we've found that many of them have chosen both undergraduate or graduate programs that take them forward and enable them to become practicing professionals in this field. So that way, we embed also champions within whatever agency, private sector, or public sector that they end up in. And that's already what we're seeing today.
Wonderful. So champions, basically cultivating champions, whether that is
Yes.
within government, whether it is the
Yes.
young people. How do you cultivate champions? And that's the work ahead. That's great. Coming to the last question, Roby, I think we have a short thought exercise for you. Now, cities across the world are grappling with sort of very similar problems: congestion, pollution, inequitable access, climate challenges. Now, imagine you're advising civic leaders in another country hoping to build a similar movement, a similar coalition. What is the first thing that you think they should do? And what are some mistakes, basically, that they must avoid, to create the coalition that truly kind of comes
Yeah.
together as one?
You know what, Jaya, maybe what I can share is what I've seen as our success factors in the Move As One coalition.
Sure.
And for me, it's about being inclusive as an organization.
Mhm.
So we really take an extra effort to say we welcome uh, all kinds of stakeholders, different backgrounds, and coming from different fields within the mobility or transportation space. And we try to get them to uh, think about a way forward that brings everyone together and leaves no one behind. So that's a fundamental part of it. And, another aspect to it is we try to make it friendly and fun because what we
Mhm.
found is this whole enterprise, in a way, is if you take a cold-blooded look at it, it's often very frustrating. So what keeps us motivated and what keeps us working on it is if we have fun, we have a good uh we get to meet and make new friends, and we have a good time in the process. So this is a big part of it, to have, in a way, that psychic income that's also part of doing this very difficult work. So, and that's where I will credit, a lot of our young people who are really behind. I'm the oldest person in the organization. I'm already 71 years old, but you know, other people, they are so much younger, and and they see it really as uh their future. They're investing in it, but they're really making it work and making it fun. So I think that's really what I can share, that's a big part of making this type of civil society organization effective.
No, that is brilliant. Psychological or psychic income, and then making the place friendly and fun as a way to attract a multitude of diverse stakeholders, and basically leaving the doors open for everyone to walk
Yes.
through. That is just brilliant. Um, well, thank you so much for thoughtfully sharing your experiences, Robbie, and congratulations on the Raw Cities Prize. We look forward to all the wonderful things this coalition will achieve and the inspiration that it will provide to other cities and other movements across the globe. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for this
Thank you so
conversation.
much, Jaya. Thank you so much, WRI. And we welcome you to the Philippines. Please come and visit us one of these days. Thank you.